These hands are clean. I'm not involved in any criminality. Isn't that the stock answer for any politician or official accused of corruption? It hardly ever makes the whispers go away, though. Deputy President Paul Mashatile is the latest at the center of tongue wagging about his alleged involvement in wrongdoing. There are now a number of investigations that could uncover answers to burning questions about the 62-year-old politician. Now, just as I said earlier, a heartbeat from the seat of power. He and his family are facing probes into their business affairs. How did his son-in-law come to own a 28 million rand mansion in Constantia? What of contracts given to his sons by a number of Gauteng provincial departments? The SIU, the Public Protector, and the Hawks are looking for answers. Online media outfit News 24 have been tracking the story themselves, and Kyle Cowan, an investigative journalist at News 24, joins us now. Kyle, as always, thank you for your time and welcome to our program.
Good morning, Bongani, and thank you for having me.
There are now a number of probes investigating the business and private affairs of Paul Mashatile and his family, and all of it began, or at least quite a chunk of it began, with some of your investigations.
That's correct, Bongani. News 24 has published several exposés on Mashatile and his family, starting in June last year, shortly after he assumed the deputy presidency. And we started looking into, his affairs, doing our due diligence as we do. And we found some very concerning things, which after we published them, of course, people picked up and, reported and made various complaints to various law enforcement, which is good because at the end of the day, it allows these issues to be ventilated,
There have long been whispers around the 62-year-old, haven't there? Including, of course, being labeled, quote, the head of the so-called Alex Mafia.
No, definitely, and that is a term that they actually coined themselves, and they try to go to court to try and stop us from calling them the Alex Mafia, an application that they lost with costs. And, this is a story that has been tracked by the media from at least 2005 and 6 when there were questions around, certain appointments and contracts awarded to IT companies, by the Gauteng government way back when Mr. Mashatile was the MEC for Economic Development. So this is certainly not new. None of this is surprising or new. The only problem has become, okay, now Mr. Mashatile is the deputy president. What's happening now? We need to look at all of this again and place it within the context of his new position.
And he wouldn't be the first deputy president accused of wrongdoing, would he? Let's start with the Constantia Mansion, Kyle. What seems untoward there? Why can't his son-in-law own a 28 million rand mansion in Constantia?
So nothing wrong with the ownership of the house, of course. Mr. Nonkwelo is at perfect liberty to buy any house that he wants. Our problem with the house has become that at the time it was purchased, it was in December 2023, it was shortly after another 37 million rand house had been purchased up in Johannesburg, and this all appears to be funded directly by Mr. Nonkwelo's business activities. Mr. Nonkwelo, of course, being Mr. Mashatile's son-in-law. And our argument around this is that in 2013, Mr. Nonkwelo started a project in Gauteng, a social housing project called Hunter Heights in Highlands North, and he was given money by a Gauteng government entity, the Gauteng Partnership Fund, to try and get this project off the ground and to make it work. Now, 2024, almost 11 years later, he's taken 7 million rand of the Gauteng Partnership Fund's money, and that project has never gone anywhere. And
so there is no Highland Heights today?
No, there's no. No construction has taken place at all. And in fact, after we published these allegations, the Gauteng Department of Human Settlements under Lebagang Maile conducted an investigation. And while that investigation, of course, cleared everyone of wrongdoing, they did say that it was, very wrong for the GPF to continue advancing the project long after it became clear that it was not viable anymore. And as we stand today, the Gauteng Partnership Fund is out of pocket for 7 million rand, but Mr. Nonkwelo is spending upwards of 60 million rand on these luxurious properties, and the GPF is simply taking no action to recoup its money.
All right. How does that square up, though? I mean, that 7 million rand you speak of hardly would pay for the mansion in Constantia, and I imagine you're referring to the 37 million rand one. Is it in Waterfall?
In Waterfall, correct. So this is how it squares up, Bongani. The Paul Mashatile was the MEC for housing in Gauteng. When the largest of the loans was awarded to Nonkwelo in 2017, Mr. Mashatile was the MEC for housing. The MEC for housing is responsible for the Gauteng Partnership Fund. Now, Mr. Mashatile and his supporters have been at great pains to try and point out, but the loan started long before he got there. But that's not technically true. While the project started before he became housing MEC, the largest loan was granted while he was MEC. Now, Mr. Mashatile, who was responsible for looking after housing in the province, is living in a house paid for by a man who owes money to the Gauteng government for failing to deliver on a housing project. And none of that seems odd to him. Doesn't question it. When we ask him about it, he says no, he's at perfect liberty to do whatever he likes. And that, of course, is true. He has made money elsewhere. But our argument is this 7 million rand is an issue. Why haven't you taken action on this? Why are you living in this house?
What's the SIU looking at? Tell me about this Celo Shiteka informal settlement.
Yeah, so this is quite an interesting one. It's a project, it's another one of those housing projects in Gauteng that never seems to have really gotten off the ground properly for a variety of reasons. So President Cyril Ramaphosa has now authorized the SIU. They've said from 1 April 2017 onwards, please go and have a look at two specific issues: the construction of ablution blocks at Siselo Shiseka, as well as the building of 180 walk-up units and the contracts awarded around that. Now, it's a very narrow scope of the investigation, but there were new contracts awarded in that time period, and Mr. Mashatile was the MEC at the time again. So our reason for linking him in this is saying he's going to also be called to explain what his department did at that time around this contract.
Of course, when this proclamation was announced, wasn't it the very next day that the Deputy President collapsed at a public event? Some might see a link there.
Some might see a link there. We point that out in our story. I don't believe that there is a direct link, but we do understand from our sources that Mr. Mashatile is under severe pressure, has been taking quite a lot of strain as a result of, not only our revelations, but also pressure from law enforcement agencies and politically.
All right.
So and I believe that, he is feeling the heat. I think that the kitchen is getting a little bit hot for Mr. Mashatile.
Yeah, as would anyone, I would imagine. What's the public protector looking at?
Public Protector is looking at several issues, Bongani. There were quite a few contracts awarded by the Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development to a group of companies called the Ngwato and Manzi Group. Now, Mr. Tabiso Mashatile, and Mr. Tiniko Mvolase are two of Mr. Mashatile's sons. They have direct links to this company. One of them is the project manager. They were directors at some point. They resigned, and then they were reappointed and resigned again. And these contracts were first picked up by our sister publication, Netwerk 24, and the Freedom Front Plus actually then filed a complaint to the Public Protector. And what we understand is that now the Public Protector is saying we need to look at whether there was an unfair advantage given to this company in the awarding of several of these contracts, which includes fire system renovations, autoclave, the supply of autoclave machines to hospitals and so on and so forth. I think in total we're talking about 4 or 5 contracts over the space of about 2 years.
Goodness me. And then, of course, there have been links to the corruption-accused Edwin Sodi.
Yeah, so News 24, has revealed that Mr. Mashatile used Mr. Sodi's house in Clifton in Cape Town, whenever he went down to visit on a number of occasions. This was, of course, before he became Deputy President, while he was Treasurer General of the ANC. But before the Zondo Commission, long before we revealed that, there was evidence led that Mr. Mashatile had taken payments directly from Edwin Sodi, straight from his company's bank account. And we understand that more money would have flowed as well in cash and so on. And Mr. Mashatile has, of course, come out to say, well, look, I'm allowed to have friends. I'm allowed to do, live my life. But the converse, the flip side of that coin is, of course, you're dealing with a man here who's one of the central state capture accused figures, having taken billions of rands from Gauteng and Free State government departments and not having delivered any work in return for that.
So ultimately, how has Paul Mashatile's office responded to all of your questions and the accusations and the linkages you are making in terms of his business affairs and that of his family and the connections to all these questionable characters?
In terms of Mr. Sodi, as that's front of mind, he has said, I'm allowed to have friends. I have freedom of association, which is perfectly true. In terms of the connections he has, of course, denied repeatedly that, he has influenced any tender processes or that he's been involved in forcing departments to award anything to anyone. He has also maintained that he will allow investigations to continue without influence and that he believes he is innocent and that he believes a lifestyle audit on him will prove that out. So we've taken Mr. Mashatile at his word and we've tried to conduct this lifestyle audit. But unfortunately, he has proved less and less communicative with us as time has gone on, choosing instead, to go to other media houses to try and tell a story of how he's being targeted and so on and so forth, which is quite disappointing. We try to be fair as far as possible, and we hope that Mr. Mashatile will actually take us, on our offer to do a full disclosure so that we can air these issues out once and for all.
All right. We'll also keep reaching out to his office. We'd love to have the Deputy President on the show. Kyle Cowan is an investigative journalist with News 24. As I say, it wouldn't be the first time a Deputy President in this country has been accused of wrongdoing. Do you think Paul Mashatile is innocent?
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.